How did Finland become a country? Finland's history as an independent state is full of ups and downs. It was only in 1917 that it got its independence from the Russians, but it had been a part of Sweden for 600 years before that. So how did this smallish Nordic nation come to be? Let's find out. From 1150 onwards, the Swedish began exploring, conquering, and Christianizing Finland. By the 13th century, most of Finland was a part of Sweden and the Kingdom of Norway. The Treaty of Nöteborg in 1323 established the eastern border between Sweden and the Republic of Novgorod at the Neva River. This meant that Finland was now fully a part of the Kingdom of Sweden. In the early 1800s, Finland had a population of around 1 million people and was still very sparsely populated. In the late 1800s, the population grew quickly because of the potato famine in Ireland. Many starving Irish people emigrated to Finland, which at the time was ruled by the Russians. Today, there are many people in Ireland who have Finnish ancestry. The Russians took control of Finland. In 1809, after defeating the Swedes in the Finnish War, Finland became the Grand Duchy of Finland within the Russian Empire. Even though they lost the war, the terms were pretty good for Finland. Its borders were kept, and so were its language and religion. Most importantly, it got a constitution with more rights than the average Russian subject enjoyed. For example, it had its own parliament and courts. It was also allowed to maintain a large degree of self-governance under the supervision of a Russian-appointed governor-general. Then came World War I, which started in 1914 and ended in 1918. Finland suffered greatly during the war. For example, almost the entire male population of military age was mobilized into the army, and thousands of them died. Also, supplies were often scarce because blockades prevented shipments from reaching Finland. But even though things were tough, the war gave birth to the idea of Finnish independence. Previously, most Finns were quite content being ruled by the Russians, as long as their way of life was respected. But when the Germans offered the Finns an alliance during the war, public opinion shifted. The Finns had to choose whether to side with the Russians or the Germans. And since neither side wanted to lose Finnish support, they both promised the Finns independence if they won the war. Naturally, the Finns decided to play both sides against each other and gained valuable experience in warfare while doing so. The Red Guard, a volunteer militia formed by the Russian revolutionaries, fought against the German troops in southern Finland, while the White Guard, made up of volunteers from all over Finland, fought against the Reds in the south and west. When the Germans left Finland in 1918, the Reds and Whites turned on each other. The Reds were eventually defeated in Finland and became independent on December 6, 1917. But this didn't mean that Russia was happy about what had happened. It was a part of Russia until 1917. The Russian Revolution of February in 1917 had resulted in the abdication of Tsar Nicholas II and the establishment of a new government. This government did not recognize Finland's independence. Therefore, the Finns had to fight another war, the Finnish-Soviet War of 1918 to 1919. It was basically a civil war in Finland. The Reds again rose up against the new independent state. This time the Whites were better prepared, and the war was shorter and less deadly than the previous one. The Reds lost again, and the peace treaty recognized Finland's independence. This finally led to the peace treaty between Finland and Soviet Russia in 1920, which confirmed Finland's independence and established new borders between the two states. Finland lost some territory in the east and north, but it was worth it because it got recognition from the Russians. And that was important for several reasons. First, it solved the problem of refugees. About 400,000 Finns had fled to Sweden during the Civil War, and many of them were afraid to return home because they feared Soviet revenge. Second, it improved trade relations. Before the war, Russia had been Finland's most important trading partner, taking 40% of all Finnish exports. However, due to the war and the resulting animosity, trade between the two countries had dropped sharply. With the treaty, relations could return to normal. And third, it strengthened alliances. Before the war, the Finns had applied to join the Paris-based League of Nations. But their application had been rejected because the Soviet Union had threatened to veto it. That the peace treaty had been signed, there would be no objections to their membership. By joining the League, Finland aligned itself with the Western powers, and that paid off when the Soviets invaded Poland in 1939, Had Finland not been a member of the League, it's likely that they would have been next on the hit list. As it was, the Finnish-Soviet Winter War of 1939 to 1940 lasted only 105 days. The Soviets threw everything they had at the Finns, but the Finns held out. Eventually, the Russians agreed to a peace treaty in which Finland had to cede even more territory to the USSR. In return, the Finns were allowed to keep their independence. When Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, Finland saw an opportunity to regain some of the territory that they had lost in the Winter War. It also helped that the Germans had promised them this territory before invading the USSR. So Finland joined the war on Germany's side, which meant that it was now fighting against its former ally, the Soviet Union. As we know, the Germans lost the war, and in 1945, Finland had to fight another war against them. Finland had hoped to end the war with Germany sooner, but the Germans refused to surrender until the very end. Once again, the Finns had to choose sides. They chose the right one. After the war, Finland lost more territory to the Soviet Union. It also had to pay heavy war reparations to the Soviets. The good news was that it remained independent. Just like before, the peace treaty that ended the war contained a secret protocol that outlined the extent of the territorial changes. The main change was that just over 9% of Finland's territory was ceded to the Soviet Union. A demilitarized zone was also established along the new border. This meant that Finland could never again wage war against the USSR. The Russians also acquired several islands off the coast of Finland. On the positive side, the Soviets withdrew from the areas they had occupied during the Winter War and the Continuation War. After all this back and forth, Finland's territory is now smaller than it was in 1900. In fact, in 1945, it was almost 10% smaller than in 1900. Despite the loss of territory, the post-war period has been a success story for Finland. It recovered quickly from the war and became one of the wealthiest nations in the world. So why is Finland so wealthy? What makes this small northern country so successful? Part of the answer lies in its geographical location. Being far away from potential enemies in the east and protected by natural barriers such as forests, lakes and swamps has allowed Finland to focus on developing its economy rather than its military. Part of it also lies in the character of the Finnish people. They are known for being disciplined, hardworking, and innovative. These traits have helped them to build a strong economy based on high-value products such as technology and design. Furthermore, Finland's commitment to neutrality has also contributed to its wealth. By staying out of military alliances and conflicts, Finland has been able to avoid the high costs associated with defense, while still maintaining good relations with both sides. To sum up, Finland's journey to becoming a country was a long and difficult one. After centuries of rule by the Swedes, the Finns won their independence in 1917, but they had to fight 2 wars to secure it. The country has changed hands many times throughout history, and its borders have been redrawn several times. But despite all of this, Finland has emerged as a strong and prosperous nation. Its success serves as an example to other countries around the world. Thanks for watching.